We are underway for the final free practice session of the 2023 Malaysia Grand Prix. It's so cold in the commentary box, I can't put my glasses on. It is freezing with a capital F. And it is one of the worst situations I've ever been in the garage in the commentary box. It is really cold. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Apologies for being half an hour delayed. There's been multiple red flags in the Moto3 session, which has delayed us massively. Now, finally, we are underway. So it's without a doubt, let's cross over to TNT Sports.
And adjusting it according to the temperature and position you may be in the pack. So, yeah. I sort of agree with you, Gav. It is a frustrating one, but it's the rules that everyone in the garage is concerned about, and they are having to adjust accordingly.
Your chat with Danny Aldridge, it was good that we got that actually from the technical director, from the horse's mouth of, look, everyone is liable. It's not random. We're not going out and picking riders out. We're not going to decide this championship. People obeying, shall we say, or adhering as much as possible to the rules is what's going to decide it. That's what I took from it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's good to get the clarification that it is all live data now, so you'll only be selected if they see that you've been under throughout the race. And
you were right, Neil, I think, when you were speaking out there with Susie and Sylvan before. All it needs is Michelin just to go, do you know what? Let's for the last race. Because, you know what? It looks bad. You said it looks bad. It's a turn-off for the championship. It looks bad on Michelin.
Yeah.
More than anything, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, literally, there are no winners if we get to the last round and the result of the World Championship after, like, say, 8 months of travelling the world is decided on a front tyre pressure. That'd be pretty painful for everyone to swallow.
And do you think, though, that it could be a talking point this weekend? It could be something that we're going to be looking at because, look, we're looking here at track temperatures already into the 40s. They're going to go even higher. We know this place is suffocating. We were chatting with Jack Miller last night. He actually said on the bike he's even better than when you sat in the garage in one of these sessions. The amount of heat there is that builds inside the garages. We've already seen an Aprilia on fire this weekend. They've got air ducts. Now, if you have a look on board here, look at this. They keep adjusting this. That little black rod there that's coming through, a little air filter that's coming to try and get under the helmet. It's an issue this weekend. The heat, it's horrible here.
Yeah, it is. Strangely, this morning, it is a relatively cool morning, even though now the clouds are sort of, like, let's say, starting to separate a little bit and the sun's breaking through. But as far as Malaysia goes for a morning, it has been a pleasant one so far. But absolutely, this round could play a part. Front tyre pressures will be an issue at this round. So, yeah, but I can't see it being an issue in Qatar, obviously, the race at night, and at Valencia, it'd be the exact opposite, really. So, as in, the tracks and the ambient temperature will be so cool. So, thankfully, I don't think it'll be an issue there. But it is a bit of a boring subject, isn't it? But it's a reality of where we are at the moment.
Riding on board here with Marc Vinales through turn 10. Titans here for 11, and the shoulder of the Aprilia man. One in every class here.
A bit of a tough run, hasn't he? Just of late, but having to pull out of the last race due to overheating.
Yeah, and that duct, Michael. How much? I've got a couple of questions about it, as I'm sure everyone has. How does that affect you, Aero? How much is it really going to help?
We keep losing TV pictures up here in the commentary box. It really is quite funny.
The reason it's producing so much heat for the rider is because they've worked so much on the internal aerodynamics of the machine, so as it doesn't create as much drag. So you look around the radiator, how they try and speed up the airflow through the...
Yeah, and there it goes again. I mean, it's getting quite comical now.
It's getting hotter throughout, so...
Yeah, it's getting quite comical how quickly we're losing everything up here in the comms box. Something's interfering with the systems. It's so cold that the weather's just interfering with it all.
RC30 that used to take the air from there through the screen and then into the airbox, but instead of going into the airbox, this now goes on top of...
Yeah, we're just losing temperature.
But his chin is directed directly into the front of his chin bar, so I hope it does work a little bit.
It reminds me of I don't know if you remember this, Michael, this could be before your time. Gav, I don't think I'm pretty sure you won. Do you remember, like, I think it's about 1990, the Durex Suzukis in
Jimmy Whittam.
Yeah, Jimmy Whittam.
The RGV 250 or on the big bikes?
No, on the big bikes had this massive scoop in the middle of the screen that was obviously going down into the airbox, but I'm trying to think who was riding, but one of them definitely was Jamie Whittam. I'm trying to think who the other rider was, but
Phil Miller.
Who, sorry?
Phil Miller.
Yeah, no, I think
he was TT for the.
Yeah. That's one for the Twitterati, that is. That's one for the people out there.
I'll get a picture, I'll put it on my socials. You'll laugh when you see it.
Just I want a quick word on Alvaro Bautista. You spoke to him earlier in the weekend. Lovely sit-down interview, actually. He's a good lad, actually. He's Alvaro, 38 years of age now, twice back-to-back World Superbike Championships, and he's had, I don't know, he's taken a lot of flack, I think, a lot of it unfair criticism, because he's a hugely talented rider, as we know, and finding going tough this weekend. And again, we're going to talk about tyres, because when I spoke to him last night, he was saying how with the Pirelli, he has this slide, and the way he feels it, he says he just can't feel the tyre in the same way. Can you explain to people what Alvaro would be meaning?
It's pretty clear to see when you watch Bautista in World Superbikes. Of course, we know that Ducati is fast. He's got a slight advantage, or a large advantage at some tracks on the straights. But don't be mistaken, he's the only man on the Ducati that's able to have, what did he say he's won? 27 races last year. I mean, he was super impressive. What impresses me about him is when you watch him,
Oh, just losing signal once again, but it's Quartararo on top.
With these big slides, it helps him turn, and that's how he's able to achieve a really fast lap time. He's come here. Do you know what? Obviously, he tested in Misano, and Sylvain Guintoli was there, and he said, honestly, Neil, he was so fast. His race pace was fast. Whatever has happened, he's come here, and he's not quite got the feeling from the tyres, and that's very Michelin. It's very what these tyres can do. Sometimes you'll hear Sylvain in the past use the word activation. You've got to activate the tyres, and it looked a little bit wooden yesterday, did Bautista. It looked like he wasn't quite activating the tyres properly, and he wasn't able to ride how he wanted. That said, if you look this morning, he's knocked another chunk off. He was about 2.5 seconds off yesterday, second last. Yeah, he was 2.5 seconds off. He's currently only 1.4 seconds off this morning, and this is more realistic. There'll be another step. Look, I think at the start of the weekend we all got a bit carried away, and I'd got him on the podium at one point. And I will just throw Sylvain under the bus. He was wanting to know what the odds were online for him to finish on the podium, because Sylvain sat in the comments box giving me the thumbs up, by the way. Yeah, what the odds were, and he was putting his mortgage on it, I tell you. So anyway,
Caroline, if you're back home, you might be looking for a new house.
Hang on. He's just gone faster again as Bautista. He's now only a second off the pace. He's 70.
He's found a 10th on yesterday.
And I tell you what, on tyre consumption, he's one of the better riders because he's lighter and how he rides it. By tomorrow afternoon, that bet may pay off, Sylvain. You could be all right.
They are all out on the medium tyres, and Michelin say 90% of the field will go with that as the race tyre.
I think in reality now, I'm pretty confident he's not going to be on the podium, and I'm pretty confident he's not going to be in the top 5. But if he can make another step, come tomorrow, it'll be the long race, the sprint race. I think he will struggle. I think he'll struggle a little bit in qualifying, because literally these riders are so used to putting a soft tyre in and going to the absolute limit.
What chances for Fabio Quartararo in the Yamaha? We've heard of Maio Meregali there, and Fabio himself saying, we don't really quite understand. We thought it was the heat of some place, we thought it was the casing, but here it's just, again, it's working.
Yeah, obviously Fabio's always been strong here, as is the Yamaha. When you think back to Valentino a few years ago battling with Marc, and it's always a track on paper. You look at the long straights and think the Yamaha's going to struggle here, but they corner really well around the long hanging right-handers. So Fabio's got a realistic shot. If he can get into those top 6 grid positions, he can get a start to run down to turn 1 and be in contact. So obviously we know the big Achilles heel is fighting, being able to make the overtake. So it's all about the first lap and the run to turn 1 for Fabio this weekend.
Seen Bez already there trying the bike swap. Very fickle weather here in Malaysia. You can see the sun bearing down on the riders here and now. In the blink of an eye, it can change, and it can be thunderstorms and downpours, and suddenly it's, although on Thursday, Neil, actually when you were speaking to Alvaro Bautista, and we were talking about the weather, constant sort of drizzle all day. I've never known it like that here in Malaysia before.
Yeah, it is never normally like that. I was supposed to be my track guide actually with Alvaro, but it was raining that heavy that we just turned it into a sit down, which I much preferred because it meant I didn't have to walk the track in the rain. And I actually got a chance to. He's a funny character, actually. I've never really spent that much time with him over the years. I know, obviously, he was in this paddock for a while, but we didn't really interview him that much. But he's in a good place. The two-time World Superbike champion, obviously 3-time world champion now because he won the 125 championship way back when. But yeah, it was nice talking to him, and it's nice to see a rider that's just loving life, loving his racing, and genuinely, when he said, "I've come here as it's a gift to have fun."
Yeah,
of course he will push. Of course he'll risk and want to get a result. He will not want to ride round in last place. No rider wants that. So.
And let's not forget about Alvaro Bautista. So we see Jorge Martin just off the edge of the track there. As I think Aleix Espargaro was trying to come down pit lane. Martin had run wide and then was going to rejoin. And then I think he thought, you know what, I'm just going to tuck back in. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, same. I agree. It's one of those little moments. They are best of friends, those two. Yeah. So if that had been anyone else, Aleix would have been shaking his head.
No doubt.
I'll guarantee. Even if it was his brother.
I was going to say just about Alvaro though. He was at the forefront of the Aprilia project. He is a Gigi Dall'Igna protege. He won the World Championship for Aprilia in the 125 class in 2006. He nearly won the 250 Championship for them and brought them back in, him and Stefan Bradl, if you remember.
Yeah, and that year he was really competitive from that point on. Then Aprilia went missing for 4 seasons, didn't they, really?
Yeah, he got 12th in the championship on the Aprilia in 2016.
Yeah.
And then switched back to Ducati and the Aspar team. And a couple of rides as a replacement in the factory team. Remember him in Phillip Island?
That's right.
Really well there.
4th that race as well.
Yeah, he was battling. He was right at the front, weren't he? I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, 4th in Australia, 5th in Japan when he switched onto the factory bike. He can ride a bike.
That's not in question, is it?
And you know, he was actually from the same stock as Danny Pedrosa. They came through the same championship. Him, Tony Elias, Casey Stoner,
Olive
as well. All came through that same system.
Yeah, he said, I was talking to him about that off camera, about that. I said, how old were you back then? He went, I was 14. Yeah. Isn't it funny?
Took a little 14-year-old. Yeah. You seen the old shots of him?
Yeah,
It's brilliant.
And he said, and he weren't mourning, but he went, yeah, Danny was like the golden boy, and he got the best of everything. And he said, for us and my family, we'd nothing really. So it was like we see now with a lot of these talent cups. It was the leg up that he really needed, and he said it took him longer than Danny to sort of work his way through.
Yeah, he came through the Spanish system, Atletico Madrid team originally. Then Clarence Seedorf, remember the footballer? He had his team, and he took him through the series. Then went to Aspar and had all his successes with them. So.
Here's an interesting one for you. So when we were in Phillip Island, I was talking to Casey, again, just off camera chatting, about when he was in that, the Telefonica Movistar Talent Cup, and Casey was 15 or 16 at the time. And I said, what was it like when you joined that? And what was it like? She was sort of with this group of riders, Danny and all that lot. He said he had an experience, I can't remember, I think he said Albacete, but he said it was the first time Danny Pedrosa came past him. And he said it was the first time he'd ever seen a rider that was doing something that he couldn't do, and it surprised him, shocked him, but also in such a case way. He said, I loved it, and he said it only happened for a short period, but I learned so much. Imagine that, like at such a young age, of how obviously we know how obviously all their riders, those riders I'm talking about, careers have turned out. They're all turned into pretty much legends. But for Casey to say, like, the first time he saw Danny on track, he was like witnessing something, this sheer speed and talent that he'd never seen before.
See the front protesting there for Frankie Morbidelli as he brings it round that final corner on the circuit. But it's another good session for the Yamaha men here. 1st and 3rd now for Quartararo and Morbidelli, and these are what we're looking at in terms of race times here. These, everyone's putting in a race run. That's where we're at. And it's 1st and 3rd. Alex Marc is in between. But the Yamahas, the problem they're going to have is if they were at the front, Michael, staying in front.
Yeah, obviously the speed's there. It does seem to me, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, that they've got their lowering device working better. It definitely looks cleaner off the corner, but it sits lower, which obviously improves the top speed. The smaller front area grabs less wind. You're not getting as much drag. So You look at Fabio at the moment. He's 4th in top speed, 3.32 versus obviously Bagnaia 3.36, but within 4 kilometers an hour of the top Ducati out there. That's competitive. So yeah, Morbidelli's 10th, 3.30. So they're not far away in top speed. It is getting off the corner is their slight area where they lack a little bit to Ducati, Aprilia, and KTM.
Currently, Jorge Martin is 10th. Pecco Bagnaia is 6th. How much, Neil? I mean, I know you were trying to glean that out of Davide Tardozzi with Susie before. How much is this tyre pressure? Yeah, oh, as you say, crash button.
Yeah, down goes Marco Bezzecchi, down at turn 10. So Bezzecchi just dropping at the front. Really not that. It's not that difficult to do, actually. The way he just sort of turned in, the front dropped away from him there. So he's just going to get away with it. Front's just going to dip in as well. As soon as he turns in, is it coming into 12 actually? Looking at it on the control board, yeah, it might be. 3rd gear, 155 kilometers an hour. Turns in, front dips away and just drops out from it underneath. So Bezzecchi becomes our first crasher of the free practice 2 session going into qualifying. There's only 13 minutes left actually at this session. Everything just slightly delayed because of that red. Well, 2 red flags actually in the Moto 2 session. One for Izan Guevara, one for Darren Binder. And Darren Binder's punctured the air fence. And they blew up another air fence, and that had a puncture in it. So they had to blow up another air fence to get it back in there as well. And eventually we got the session underway and sorted again. As they're going to put everyone else back in. Bezzecchi's going to be running back into the pit lane in the opposite direction. So we've got 16 riders within a second. We're on the current times at the moment, and you can see Quartararo, Alex Marquez, Franco Morbidelli, Jan Zarco, all in there as well, looking strong. Bastianini, Bagnaia, Marc Marquez, Binder, Pol Espargaro, and Martin, they're the top 10 as things stand.
Last few races, Indonesia was leading until he crashed out. It's been his way. I just wonder, Pecco Bagnaia, I feel like, has known he's not going to be leading races in recent times, so that front tyre pressure issue perhaps isn't so much of a concern for it as someone who's been leading all the races.
Yeah, I guess, and the engineers, it all depends on qualifying. So where do you qualify, and then, which is coming up after this session, qualifying, and then after that, you have a sit down and have a meeting, and you have that gamble, and I guess we think that this is going to be the last time that tyre pressures play a huge part in it. So the fact that Bagnaia's got a clean sheet up to now, he hasn't had a warning, he's definitely got a slight advantage with that. But then you're not going to play your cards for the sprint race. So, but for the main race, you might as well risk going a little bit softer. Yeah. But then if you end up leading, and it's really tricky. And like we've said, it's a little bit of a boring conversation.
It is.
But I tell you what, I found the most interesting about speaking to Davide was, what does Francesco Bagnaia have to do to beat this man in the sprint race? And he said he has to attack on the early laps. Great, no problem. Attack on the early laps. And then you make a mistake and took the front. And as he tucks the front on the opening laps, Bagnaia, as he's trying to match this man who's the king of that, what do the factory team all think of him? They think, what a fool, what are you doing? Don't throw it away. And that is how difficult it is when you're riding that factory team with that pressure. That's sort of advice you're being getting. You need to be more aggressive, push harder, but don't crash. Oh, yeah, cheers. Easy that.
What I will say, though, Michael, is if Jorge Martin's been setting his bike up to lead races in recent events, the target has to be what Neil's saying, and what Davide's saying, is get in front of him early, challenge him early on in the race. Don't let him get into his rhythm, because then if he has gone soft on the tyre pressure, you know, or he hasn't gone, if that makes sense, then he will suffer.
Exactly. They know from practice what they can get away with, and it is according to the start. So if he's out front, they can manage it. They can actually prepare on the grid. But if Pecco gets in front, if Brad Binder gets in front, and all of a sudden you've got 2 bikes blocking the airflow onto your front tyre, the pressure will go up. And that extra 0.1 of a bar can make all the difference. So if the Raiders riding around 2.1, they're happy. All of a sudden they go to 2.2 and red light comes on the dash, and they know they have to be careful. They have to cool it down. It just gets in your psyche. So it could affect the long race tomorrow.
something for me doesn't feel not right this weekend with Jorge Martin. We've been talking about the last few races up to Thailand pretty much of him having the advantage, him looking the quickest. Just this weekend, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into the fact currently that he's in 10th place, but he said yesterday to the press he felt blocked, was his line, on the first few laps when he was out on track yesterday. He knows he's under pressure. The pressure is coming from all sides, isn't it, at this moment? And I just wonder if we're getting to that point in the championship where Pecco Bagnaia has been there and done that, and Jorge Martin knows this could be my chance.
I think you've got a really good point, and that's how I'm reading it. He's had the week off. He stayed out in Bali and spent time with Malaysia Spargo and did some training and all that lot. But when you stay out here, you have got a lot of time on your hands. If you go home, you're dealing with a little bit of jet lag and you're seeing friends and trying to get back to your normal routine back at home. When you're out here, genuinely, I think it's all right. You've got the time to think. I'll tell you what now, all I've got to do now is 3 more weekends. I am the man with the momentum. I've won the last 5 sprints in a row. Oh, don't mess it up. And that's...
He said that, didn't he, before the weekend?
And when he talked about feeling blocked, that is pressure. That blocked feeling. And I'm not saying now, I'm not going to say, oh no, I think his head's going to go with these last 3 races. But I genuinely think the penny's dropped. That he's now not... I know there's still a gap, but it's almost like, not that he's got one hand on the championship, but he has a realistic chance to win the ultimate goal. And then you can ride different. That can affect you.
We're seeing the Yamahas up there. Alex Marquez looks in great nick as he did in Thailand last weekend. He didn't have the advantage, Michael, last week. In fact, many people saying that the best pace in Thailand really was Binder. And Bagnaia and Martin were pretty similar. But Martin came up with the goods. He worked it out. He's got to do the same here again.
It's a different approach, though, whenever the championship's in the balance. So I do see it. I see the extra thought process that goes into the weekend when you're thinking about... He's obviously got one yellow card on the front tyre infringement. He's got the feeling of the strain and the stresses not allowing him to ride in his normal way. So the flow's not there as yet. I do think he'll have the speed to put it together this afternoon in the sprint, but it's going to hang on his shoulders overnight. You don't sleep as well. It's just everything's... you're thinking about everything. You're not just going out there and riding happy-go-lucky.
One thing that Jorge Martin is very, very, very good at, and that is that explosive start, and that's why he's won the last 5 sprints. He can get off the line, but he can go to the limit on the first lap. If he's able to do that again, and that Gav is more of a reactive thing. It's more automatic. It's a subconscious thing. He can just do it. If he's able to do that, then I think then he will win the sprint race, and then I genuinely think he'll win the main race because of it. But it's at this point in the weekend where he's thinking about the championship, and you've time for some negative thoughts to float into your subconscious.
Watching Marc has been following him, tracking him for the last few laps, and hasn't been dropped. He's been there, hasn't he? Marquez is making that bike work. It's almost as if he said, you know what? He said this to the press yesterday. It was in the Spanish. I was there for the debriefs to the Spanish press, and he was saying, I could have packed up, and gone home and taken the money. I could have done that next year, but I'm not, because I want to do it. And this year, I'm still pushing. I still want to, show what I'm capable of. Do you know what he's doing? Silva was talking about this yesterday. He'll test the Ducati with the Grassini team, and then he's flying to Japan to do a Honda event. He's going to the Honda Thanks Day.
Really?
That they have at the end of every year. At the end of it's a really strange situation, isn't it? But clearly, we saw in Thailand. He was right up for it in Thailand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's obviously a contractual thing. That's an important thing for Honda. But it does seem, it seems really strange. You almost, and I don't need to sound disrespectful, but the fact that he's leaving, you wouldn't really want him there. But anyway, we'll see. There's one thing we know. Marc, once he made that decision, he's improved on the Honda. Yeah. And because, this is my theory, and I've not said it before, because now he's building to win the championship for next year. Now he's back to ride, full focus. Let me get the most out of every lap on this Honda. So I am personally razor sharp and ready to fight.
And how many times have we
Martin
seen
went deep at 10:16.
Ducatis?
Yeah, quite a lot.
All the time, and it's almost as if he's learning from them, because he's spoken about it. He spoke last time in Thailand, the things that bike can do that I'm not able to be doing at the moment.
And on the previous lap, we witnessed it where it's a massive accordion effect following Jorge Martin. Areas on the brakes where Marc's coming in. Looks like he gets it stopped at the corner, but then the first touch, the Ducati just takes a bike length. So he's now trying to duck in behind brother Alex, who's flying this weekend. Actually, he's got some really good pace and on this lap, setting his personal best. So yeah, Marc, I agree with Neil. He's out there staying razor sharp, taking everything out of the Honda, learning where the Ducati's better, and I can't wait to see him on it in Valencia.
Just to give you an example, I put it, I retweeted it last night. His brother, who's in front of him, last year was riding around this track on a Honda, and obviously yesterday he rode the Ducati, and Alex Marquez rode the Ducati for the first time around this track this weekend, and he's 2 seconds a lap faster than he was able to achieve on the Honda. Like, just imagine that. Imagine what Marc is going to do on the Ducati. It's going to be impressive. Just changing the subject, Bautista's just done his fastest lap on his 10th lap, and he's now only 0.8 of a second off. He's gone up to 17th. I'm going to go back on everything I said. He's going to win!
Right. Sorry. Neil, one less coffee for Neil Hodgson.
Currently in front of Marco Bezzecchi.
Yeah.
Impressive, isn't it?
2 minutes. He's no stranger to a sprint format, of course.
No, that's true.
Alvaro Bautista. Here we go then, on board with Fabio Quartararo, fastest in this session with 2 minutes remaining. Do you know what, I was looking...
1 and 2, that's so unreal, isn't it?
Yeah, 1 and 2 now for the Yamahas. I was looking, actually, in terms of the who's done well in what part of the weekend. Jorge Martin, if there was a sprint championship, would be 12 points clear. 1 sprint race difference between himself and Pecco Bagnaia, with Brad Binder actually in 3rd place. Fabio Quartararo nowhere, way down the order. And then you go to Sunday, and Pecco Bagnaia would be leading Jorge Martin by 25 points if it was just about the Grand Prix. Brad Binder would be down in 5th behind Johann Zarco in the championship, and Fabio Quartararo would be 7th in the championship. Just shows how sprint has changed. It's the complete complexion of this championship.
It suits some riders more than others. Brad Binder, the obvious candidate, being a bit of a sprinter, and then Jorge Martin, Neil talked about the explosive start, his ability to get to the maximum straight away, eke out a second advantage in those early laps, and then when you're going 10 laps around here, it's much easier to manage. So yeah, it is. It's one of those factors that has definitely changed the dynamic of the championship and the approach and the strengths for some over others.
Back to Maverick Vinales, who, as we said earlier, has won in all 3 classes at this circuit.
So when he pulled in at the last round, Maverick, saw a little bit of negative stuff on social media. Standard. But what was incredible when it came out was he runs a heart monitor, so he knows exactly how hard he's pushing. He's one of the fittest riders. All the top MotoGP riders are incredibly fit, but we've seen him with the heart monitor, we've seen the live monitor in previous years, and he's probably got the lowest heart rate I've ever seen.
Freakishly low.
Yeah, for a motorcycle racer. And we're talking about it being about 120 beats a minute whilst he's riding the MotoGP bike. That's so unusual. Your majority, the average for a MotoGP rider would be in the high 170s.
That's what we saw.
Yeah, and we're in the commentary box. Usually our heart rates are up as well, around about 130, 140 during the start of a race and the end of a race. So a remarkable concentration and calmness from Maverick Vinales there. Checker flag is out though. Session is over here at Malaysia. So Brad Binder, 3rd fastest in the moment, coming up. Qualifying is up next. If you're watching on YouTube, the stream will be automatically redirected to the qualifying stream. If you're watching on Twitch, you've just got to stay where you are. So just stay with us here on YouTube and you'll be automatically redirected. Binder goes 3rd. Aleix Espargaro's going to 12th position. At the moment, Marco Bezzecchi currently staying where he is. 8/10 down after his crash earlier on in the session. He comes out the last corner of turn 15, second gear, 75 kilometers an hour, up to the line, stays 18th. Bautista stays 17th, Di Giannantonio 13th, Marini 9th. Augusto Fernandez stays in 20th place. Not many people are improving. They're all just sort of staying where they are in the overall sessions. For some reason the mouse isn't working, but now it's opening PowerPoint on the laptop, which isn't the handiest thing on the planet. Franco Morbidelli might improve though. It's a Yamaha 1-2. They haven't won a race all year as well. Morbidelli last won Valencia as well back in 2020. Quartararo last won the German Grand Prix in 2022. Morbidelli goes second, 158.985. So everyone has taken the checkered flag. It ends like this, with Quartararo, Morbidelli, Binder, Alex Marquez, Zarco, then Bastianini, Bagnaia, Marc Marquez, Marini, Martin, top 10. Polo Spargo, Aleix Spargo, Di Giannantonio, Vinales, Miller, Raul Fernandez, Bautista, Bezzecchi, Mia, Augusto Fernandez, Nakagami, Oliveira, and Aiki Lukanoa down in 23rd position. So that's it then for qualifying. Coming up in a few moments' time will be the qualifying session. Of course, it's all slightly changed up here, but it's a 158.960 for Fabio Quartararo. He tops this session. We'll be back later in a few moments' time, so don't go anywhere on YouTube or Twitch. You'll be redirected.